in the world of COVID? Possibly. But despite the challenges and what-ifs, Quinnipiac teams are working hard to prepare for play if and when it comes. With the disruption in their seasons and loss of key players, how will teams from soccer to field hockey to volleyball fare in this new world of athletics? And are the right decisions being made about Bobcats ice hockey? All this and more coming up on Bobcat Breakdown. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Izzy Agricola. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight we are in for yet another lively show as I'm joined by Liz Flynn and Steve Pappas. Close friends when not behind the desk. Liz and Steve, how are you feeling about debating each other tonight?
I'm good about debating. Both of us being Ranger fans, I could say we're both pretty sad about Henrik Lundqvist leaving the team, but we'll leave our tears at the door for the show and try and put on a good show for you guys.
We're also both Met fans, so more tears will have to be left for tonight.
Unfortunately.
All right, well, let's roll right into it. In the midst of COVID-19, the MAC has yet to announce the exact plans for most fall sports seasons, including men's soccer. But the team is hopeful they will be able to play in the spring, even with a limited schedule and without star players. 2018 MAC Offensive Player of the Year, Eamon Whalen, ended his career as a senior last year, third in all-time Bobcats goals. Steve, what can we expect from the team this year as they compete without Whalen?
Yeah, well, they're going to look different, but they're also going to look different because Romain Danelou's not in the lineup. And if you add those two players together, that's 37% of the goals scored last season for the Bobcats, and that's a lot of offense. So what that means for this team this year, Liz, is they're going to have to spread that wealth around. It can't be one guy that's just taking the brunt of the goal scoring. It's got to be spread around the lineup. And you look at Simon Hillinger, it's going to step in and fill that facilitator spot for Romain Danelou. And then you're going to look at a guy named Thomas Vakula. I don't know if you've heard of him. Only the second most points on the team last year as a first-year player. He's now a year older. Brog Austin as well was a huge part of that first-year class, last season. And then Jason Budahai had his flashes last year as a first year. I'd expect to see a little bit more from him this year, but there's a lot to like about this team. Sure, the star is gone in Eamon Whalen, but there's a lot of depth pieces to go around on this Bobcat team.
You make great points about Danelou, so let's just break down a little bit of Whalen's accomplishments in his 4 years. He was just named one of the 5 former players chosen for the MAC 40th team. He's a 3 times MAC first team, and mine is sophomore year because he had a big injury, but if he wasn't injured, I'm willing to bet he would have made the first team then as well. 2018 Player of the Year, 2016 Rookie of the Year, and in his career, Quinnipiac, he was 3rd all-time in goals. End of the line, he was on the field, he was producing. And now that he's no longer there are going to have to be other underclassmen that step up into his position. 2 names that come to mind for me are Brog Austin and Tomas Vakula, who you also mentioned. They show a lot of promise, and they can definitely fill the shoes that he's leaving, but it is going to be difficult knowing that you're not going to walk on the field and see him. He's not going to be there to help lead you and guide you anymore. But in their first years, they were both extremely successful. So although Whalen is a huge loss, I still think that those 2 players specifically will really be able to step into those shoes.
Yeah, and listen, we know this. This is what college sports is all about. You recruit and you get people in to replace your program staples. It's unfortunate that Eamon Whalen has to leave the program for how good he was for the Quinnipiac men's soccer program, but that's what college sports is. You get your 4+ years or so, and then you got to move on. So it's what recruiting is for, and I think the men's soccer team's done a good job of recruiting.
Mm-hmm. So as the team prepares to move on without Whalen, they also remember the heartbreaks of the last 2 seasons. 2 close postseason losses in 2018 and 19 caused the Bobcats to once again miss out on bringing the MAC championship trophy to Quinnipiac, as they last did 7 years ago. Liz, as the team has knocked on the door of a MAC championship for the last 6 seasons, but not one, are you concerned about their performance in the big games?
Izzy, I'm not too concerned because I've been here for the past 4 years now, and I've been able to see them grow from my 4 years here, and they get closer and closer every time, minus last year. Last year in particular, they lost to Iona, and Iona was just a better team overall. Yes, you can say that they were outperformed and that they could have done things better, but that's college sports for you. Iona was simply a better team, and they were not going to make it past them. But I do want to talk about the 2018 team. They made it to the finals and lost 1-0 to Ryder. It wasn't a blowout game. Ryder just got the goal, and then that was the end of it. But I'm not thinking about the semifinal game in 2018. They had 10 rounds of penalty kicks and still managed to win. That's resilient. That shows that they are equipped to be able to make it far, and every year it gets a little bit closer. Granted, as we said before, they did lose some big-name players, but coming into next season, I am not too concerned about how they're going to perform now.
Yeah, and listen, this is a small sample size you're looking at. You're looking at 2 games right now, but that's really all you have to look at is the 2 big games that they played against Ryder and Iona. And you got to look at it bluntly. They lost both of those games. And whether you want to say that the Iona game last year, Iona was the better team, I beg to disagree. I think Quinnipiac had the edge on them, and especially with that star player in Eamon Wayland, it seemed like that was the time for the Quinnipiac men's soccer team to make that run at a MAC championship. And 2 years ago, the loss to Ryder in that MAC final, I mean, like I said, it's a small sample size. But that's what you have to deal with right now, and that's what we're looking at. So in the present right now, I'd say yes, they're having an issue in that big game. But that being said, they're a young team who does have a lot of experience. We just mentioned with Bragasen and Tomas Vekula, they're guys that have gone through this. They've gone through the heartbreak of losing when you're supposed to win. They've gone through the trials and tribulations of losing on home field when you're supposed to win. So that just makes this team better, and I think they're very dangerous come hopefully when the season starts in the spring.
So soccer wasn't the only team so close to a MAC title. Last year, the volleyball team defied all expectations and made a run to the championship final, where they lost out. But Q30's Eric Kerr sat down with senior outside hitter Morgan Sherwin to talk about her hopes for another great season this year in the midst of a pandemic. Eric?
What was your first reaction when you heard the news that MAC volleyball is going to be playing this year?
I was just very excited. Being a senior, not having a senior season was a little upsetting, but being able to play again will be very exciting to have one more go around, especially after losing in the finals last year, one more shot at redemption for it. We've been able to get back into the gym and start working at actual practice with volleyballs. We've been doing a lot of strength and conditioning. But now we've actually started playing again, so being able to get back in the gym with everybody, with small groups and stuff, just starting to play again, it's been really good to see. And we're all excited to be able to start team practices soon to get ready for the season.
What has Coach Robinson done to help you guys stay engaged during a time when everyone was home due to the coronavirus and also not being able to play for the fall? How has he been able to keep you guys motivated to keep practicing and prepare for the season?
We had a lot of Zoom calls, and we just kept looking at the positives of everything. Keep looking into the future, knowing that once the fall season was postponed, it was only postponed, not canceled. So we knew that there was a very good chance of playing in the spring, which we all were looking forward to. Just looking forward to that and not getting down or disappointed, just keeping our heads high and working for the future of the spring season.
One of the main hitters that you guys did lose, or players, was Callie Oates, one of the most efficient hitters in the MAC last season. So how are you and the rest of the offensive players on the attack going to respond to losing someone like Callie Oates in the roster?
We have 2 new males this year to come in for our male position. We have Nicole Legg, who's a transfer. She'll be a junior. And then Lexi Morse, who is a freshman for our first year from Tampa, Florida. So both of them are great additions to the team. They're going to be huge assets to be able to help along with our other senior captain, Gab Horman. So we're looking like we're in good shape, and we're all really excited for it.
All right. So you guys talked about, trying to get to that next level earlier on in the interview to win that MAC championship. So what steps are you guys going to take as a team to be able to reach that level to get over the hump?
We're just taking it practice by practice, one step at a time, working on the little details and every pass, every set, every hit that we have, doing it with a purpose, with every intention, just all the right mindsets and everything to get us to be able to be in the finals again and hopefully bring home the MAC championship.
Thanks, Eric. Now, as Morgan mentioned, head coach Kyle Robinson made a big splash last year when he came to Quinnipiac and took them right to a championship. But Robinson was not the only difference in this team's stellar season. Steve, if you're taking Robinson out of the equation, what or who was the biggest difference in last year's success?
See, I'm not going to go with a player. I'm going to go with a mindset of this team. And it's somewhat, I know, Izzy, you said not Kyle Robinson, but it has something to do with Kyle Robinson. And it's the culture that he brought to this team. Players were allowed to breathe. They were allowed to do their own thing and be their own person on a team where 2 years ago that just simply wasn't the case. And it allowed them to be more enjoyable on the court. It allowed them to be more human, a little less robotic. And it really showed last year that if you give a team that has enough talent just a chance to be able to be their own person and breathe and play their own game, they'll succeed at an astronomical pace. You saw it last year, making it all the way to the MAC final. And I think it's hard to pick someone or something other than Kyle Robinson last year. He really brought that extra gear to this team last year, and it really showed when it came down to crunch time. Nobody thought they'd be where they are, and that's exactly where he got them.
So I'm going to answer your question and give you a what or a who. I said the seniors. Alejandro Rodriguez, Lauren Miller, Maria Pansari, and Callie Oates, they had gone through their years here and they had experienced the change in coaching. And then as soon as they got this new head coach, they gave it their all. They put everything on the line for it. And granted, their season was still fairly mediocre. They did go 12-15 in the regular season and 8-10 in the conference. So it's not like they had this crazy Cinderella run in the regular season. You take it to the playoffs now, seniors realize this is their last chance. So they gave it their all. They split with Canisius in the regular season and beat them. And then they did the same thing against Ryder. But the only issue was Fairfield. Fairfield is just too good. If they were able to get to that point and beat Fairfield, that would have been an incredible end to their Cinderella run. But what they were dealt with, having a brand new coach in the beginning of the season, which many teams falter under that. Many teams are not able to go through these crazy runs when they get a brand new coaching staff, but this team did, and the leadership of the seniors, I think, had a big role in that.
Well, guys, we're going to toss it to the break quickly, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll talk about the field hockey team, who I was a little harsh on during a show last year. We'll see if Liz and Steve can agree with me or each other right after this break. Stay tuned.
One in three adults has pre-diabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, the boss's boss. If 1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes, that means it could be you, your barber, your barber's barber.
Nice work. Thanks.
You, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker,
On your left.
your cat jogger. Or you, your co-pilot, your co-pilot's co-pilot. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Thanks for sticking around. With everything going on in the world, a lot has changed in college athletics, and the field hockey team here at Quinnipiac is no different. Competing in the Big East has been a challenge for them, and new talent on the team, their older core, are finally giving the Bobcats a chance to turn their losing records into winning ones. However, having to fall off might be a problem for the already struggling team. Liz, how does this interruption affect the team's chances of competing in an already tough Big East conference?
Izzy, I'm going to put this very simply. I think this might be one of the best things to happen to the field hockey team. Last season, they went 5-13, 2-5 in the Big East. And a specific thing I want to mention is Becca Main trying to get her 200th win. She got to 199, and then the team lost 8 games straight. And then she finally got her 200th win just 2 games before the regular season ended. And their season ended because we knew that they were not heading to the playoffs. That has to be absolutely frustrating. We know the team needs work, whether it is strengthening their defense or recruiting more in the midfield because of their graduating class, and there needs to be some changes there. Overall, having the fall season off and with the spring being unknown because we really don't know who is going to be playing, I hope that this gives them a little bit more time to work on things and hopefully solidify something that can get them a better record than they've had the past couple seasons.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest here. You mentioned it, and I have it written down as well. These numbers that they have over these last 4 seasons in the Big East, they haven't competed in a single season in the Big East, so it's hard to believe that they're going to compete now. 2-5 in 2019, 2-5 in conference in 2018, 3-4 in 2017 and 16. That's a 10-18 record over the 4 years in the Big East, a 357 winning percentage, and over the last 2 years specifically, it's at 286, and that doesn't even look like anything close to competing in the Big East. And these aren't like, this is the Big East, Liz. This is big boy country right now. This is a big division. I know we talk about the MAC and everything is a mid-major conference. The Big East is a big boy conference, and flat out, this team has not really done a good job in the Big East so far. That being said, I do like what Becca Main has done with this team. We saw that she struggled to get her 200th win last year, 8 losses in a row before finally getting that 200th win. There's some upside in this team. It's just so tough, that Big East Conference. It's a powerhouse in field hockey. It's just so hard to see Quinnipiac succeeding in the fall or in the spring.
I don't want to blame Becca Main, but I also don't want to blame the players and put names out. But I just think overall, they just need to rework themselves, and hopefully having a little more time will do that.
The women's soccer team managed to pull out a winning record last year despite a close conference season. They made a run to the semifinals after upsetting Marist, where they lost out to a strong Fairfield team. And a lot of teams in the MAC are strong, especially Monmouth, who has won the last 3 conference titles. Steve, what does the team need to do, if anything, to get back to an elite playing level and get by teams like Monmouth?
Yeah, listen, it's got to be putting the ball in the back of the net. 24 goals in 19 games last season, a 1.26 goals per game average. And that simply is not good enough. I mean, you have Megan Phillips in net. She was a brick wall all season last year, and you got to give her some help. You can't just rely on the goalkeeper to keep balls out of the net, especially a young goalkeeper in Phillips now in her 2nd season. You can't just rely on the goalkeeping, because that, if it fails you, then you got a big issue. So you got to be able to make sure that your offense is sustaining pressure and sustaining their half of the field, and not just relying on the defense, because they've lost a lot on the defense as well, and that goalkeeping, because that could spell trouble for this team this year.
I definitely think they have all of the pieces that they need to succeed, but as you mentioned, you had some girls graduating and you're not getting the ball in the back of the net, which if you don't do that, you can't win. It's plain and simple, and you watch a soccer game, that's how it goes. But overall, I think Megan Phillips is a huge part in this, because she came in as a freshman, first year, and worked her way up to the starting position. Her 4 shutouts were good for 2nd in the MAC, and she was co-MAC Rookie of the Year. You have her, and you know that she is solid. So don't worry so much about her, and just worry about what all the other players are doing in their own end. You have Selena Salas, Olivia Scott, Kelsey Goldring, and Lauren Wendland, just to name a few. They're still here, and they have seen the leadership that has now left them, but they're still there on the team to help fill those shoes. And yes, they made it to the semifinals last season and had that tough loss to Fairfield, but they just need that last final push to the finals.
Yeah, and you said 4 in the conference, 6 overall, 6 in 17 starts last year for Megan Phillips. So you're going to need to see Phillips be at the top of her game again, but you're going to need to see the ball get put in the back of the net for this team.
Mm-hmm. Now, as mentioned with other teams, and you guys mentioned yourselves, we see some of those key players leave as they graduated. Last season's defensive line was held strong with seniors like Kylie Lance and Mackenzie Tibble. And like the old saying goes, it's the defense that's going to win you those championships. Liz, are you worried about the team's defense as they head into the spring?
Like I said, you definitely are going to be okay with this team. I'm very sure of that, but the leadership is where it's going to be crucial. Goldring, Triglione, Reeder, and Loney are the leadership team for this year, or season, again, depending on how everything turns out. And I think those are fantastic picks. They know what they're doing. They know how to fill the shoes of the leadership that had left. And I think you just need defenders that are going to be confident. It's clear this team has talent. They would not be playing at Quinnipiac if they didn't. But I just think all you really need to do is have the confidence to be able to get the job done, and you're able to take control of the back line. Danny Zerbo and Katie Schwartz saw some time on the back line last season, but not a ton, but they could easily fill into that role now and hopefully bring back some of that good energy that the previous players already had.
Yeah, I'm going no. I'm going 2 words on why no. I'm going Megan Phillips, and I know I just said you can't rely on your goalkeeping when you're not scoring that much, but last year, 6 shutouts in 17 appearances, 17 starts last year, .96 goals against average and 800 save percentage. These are incredible numbers for anybody, let alone a first year last year. She's another year older, another year of experience. I think you can't go wrong with Megan Phillips between the pipes for the women's soccer team. And yeah, there's a little weak spot in the defense right now, but you know what they say, your goaltender, your goalkeeper in this instance is your strongest defender, needs to be your strongest defender, and I think Megan Phillips is going to do that just fine this year, whenever that might be.
Well, after the sudden shutdown in the winter, fans are excited to see the People's United Center open back up with some fresh ice. The ECAC has been working on a plan to split up the conferences into 2 divisions to limit potential COVID exposure. It would consist of the New York division and the New England division for both men and women's ice hockey. Steve, who's your favorite to win each proposed division for men's?
Yeah, so I just got to make sure that this is clear. This is all proposed. Nothing has been confirmed just yet. This is all proposed. No confirmation, no vote on anything from the ECAC, but it seems like this is the direction that they're going to go in. And that New England division, it looks so good for Quinnipiac, does it not, Liz? I mean, there is maybe one team in that division that I can see that gives Quinnipiac trouble, and it's Harvard. And Harvard is so hit or miss from week to week. They can go out and score 6 goals or get shut out for 2 straight games. You never know what you're going to get with Harvard. And just frankly, I don't trust Yale. I don't trust Dartmouth. I don't trust Princeton to be able to give. I don't trust Brown either to give Quinnipiac a solid run this year. I think this is a Quinnipiac team that is very solid this year with the additions of Ty Smolanek and others. And they got Keith Petrozelli back. Odine Tufto's still there. The line of Bon Giovanni, DeYoung, and Tufto's going to be together. I think it's very hard to pick against Quinnipiac. The best goaltending in the division, the best offense in the division, one of the best blue lines in the division, and the best coach in the division in Rand Pecknold. I'll give credit to Reed Cashman. No disrespect to him now taking that job at Dartmouth. But, I mean, there's a lot to like about this division for Quinnipiac.
Steve, I could not have said it better myself. Quinnipiac has to win out. If you're looking at this list of Princeton, Yale, Brown, Harvard, Dartmouth, and Quinnipiac, I think you are insane to not pick Quinnipiac. They are the best team on the list, and I just pulled a couple of the team's numbers. All-time versus Yale, they're 24-7-5. Princeton, they're 20-11-1. And I agree with you in that Harvard, I think, is the only team that can really compete with them because a lot of the times in the past few years, they've split the regular season games. They're 15-16-5, so that's the only team that they don't have an astronomically winning record against. But pretty much everything you just said, I can't see how Quinnipiac does not perform extremely well in this potential division.
Yeah, and looking at the New York division really quickly, it was tough to look at Cornell and Clarkson and kind of match those two together, but really where I saw that was the experience come back for Cornell. Cam Donaldson, Cody Haskinen, Brendan Locke, second on the team last year in scoring, and then the goaltending. Matthew Galida is just incredible between the pipes. I had to go with Cornell. There's no way I could pick Clarkson to win that New York division.
I was between Cornell and Clarkson just because of every team in that. They are the best, but I also went with Cornell because they're coming off a huge season from last year. They finished number 1 in the country on the poll. Like, why wouldn't you pick them?
And like Steve said, nothing has been finalized if the divisions will be actually split, but many, including Clarkson head coach Casey Jones, said it would be a solid solution. The teams would not have to travel as much and could keep any risks more easily confined. But some are concerned that this could spell bad news for certain teams. Liz, do you think only playing a handful of teams will hurt Quinnipiac when they get to the ECAC and NCAA playoffs?
Listen, this season, if it happens, is full of question marks. We have no idea what's going to happen, and the potential loss of out-of-conference is going to mess up all the polls, and it's going to mess up everyone's records. Overall, I'm more concerned for the ECAC than I am for the NCAA, just because, yes, Quinnipiac is the better team in their potential division, but overall, if they're not going to be able to see those New York teams, You don't know what they're going to be bringing. Sure, you can watch footage and this and that, but playing helps. And I'm not as concerned about the NCAA just because they have seen many of these teams before, and it might be a little easier to figure out. And the past couple seasons, this team has not had the best of luck in ECAC due to a number of reasons.
Yeah, I'm going no and yes in this because it helps to be able to kind of take that weaker schedule and kind of beat up on teams. You look at Cornell, they're going to have to play Clarkson 4 times and vice versa. Those are 2 big hitting teams that they're going to have to go against each other. And the physicality might take out some of those key players, whereas Quinnipiac isn't facing those bigger, more physical teams. You usually see that in the New York division. And I just think Quinnipiac, it's hard to pick against them right now in the conference at all because they're such a talented team with Keith Petrozelli and, Ty Smolanek, Odin Tufto. You can go down the list, but, I would have to go Quinnipiac. They're nothing really to worry about right now at this point.
Yep, I agree.
All right, ladies and gents, we are going to one more break. And when we get back, Liz, Steve, and I will be coming at you with our final roars. Stick with us. Welcome back. As we wind down tonight's show, you know what time it is. That's right, final roars. Liz, take it away, sister.
We have reached week 2 of our show and about a month since students returned to campus to find some normalcy during these crazy times. I could go on and talk about the loss of fall sports, the unknown of the winter seasons, or the potentially busy schedule of the spring. Instead, I think it's more important to talk about us. You, the viewers, all of us here in Studio 125 working hard to keep our shows up and running, and everyone else outside these 4 walls just trying to get through each day. When was the last time you checked in with the people around you? Or more importantly, when was the last time you checked in with yourself? Living through a global pandemic can't be the easiest thing to do every day. I know it hasn't been for me. We fill our days with distractions, dive into our work, and just wish for a better tomorrow. But you can't do those things when your mental health is taking a toll. It's okay to feel fear, it's okay to feel anxious, and it's okay to feel different. You're not the only one. And even if you're not, think about the people around you. Now more than ever, we need to be here for each other. Times are tough, but the only way out is through. So until the mask wearing is over and the words COVID-19 and coronavirus become less frequent in our vocabulary, take my advice. Be kind to one another, hug your loved ones a little tighter, and take care of yourselves, because our minds are working overtime these days. The light at the end of the tunnel may seem distant, but it's there. You're not alone, and you never have to be. Just imagine what we can accomplish if we're in it together.
When the winter months turn over to the spring, there seems to be a sense of hope and happiness that a new baseball season is upon us, unless you're a Mets fan like myself and Liz, and the sadness, frustration, and disappointment start to set in. Quinnipiac baseball has not been the most easy thing to watch over the last 13 seasons. And between that, the baseball team has had a record of 252 and 407 for a winning percentage of .382 and a conference record of 162 and 188 over that same time. Things all seem to change in 2019, and this little school from Connecticut shocked the baseball world by defeating a Goliath in their own. So many student athletes lost their chance of playing last season, including the QU baseball team, but looking forward to the 2021 season, 9 of the 11 expected to be exiting players are returning this year. Evan Volgamore and Andre Marrero have combined for 291 games played in their career, with 36 home runs, close to 200 RBIs, and a combined OPS of 790. This team might not have started hot last year, but they are reloaded with talent, experience, and coaching to get them back on the big stage in 2021.
When I was little, I used to dream of competing in the Olympics. Then I discovered I can't touch my toes and I have an approximately 10-minute mile time. But that still hasn't taken away from the magic of the games for me. As sappy as it sounds, there's something special about watching every country come together to compete in sports each athlete has spent their whole lives perfecting. So when on March 24th, the International Olympic Committee announced the Tokyo Games would be postponed, I was heartbroken, as I'm sure many were. But it also showed us that we're in this together. Sure, the premise of the Olympics is countries competing against each other to show everyone who is more dominant. But it's also about the idea that we as a world of incredibly diverse people can come together to put on a show that everyone loves to watch. So while I didn't get to judge sports I know absolutely nothing about, the cancellation reminded me of why we can all come together and that we can do it again. We are one world. See you in 2021 Tokyo. And that's all the time we have for tonight. Be sure to tune in next week and every week after that. You can watch at our website at Q30TV.com or through the Q30 app. And be sure to check out our social media on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you to our behind-the-scenes crew for making this show happen, and thank you for watching. From me, Liz, and Steve, have a good night and stay safe.